Right. This is Civic City Draußenstadt funded conversation regarding the city, our cohabitation, information flows, and many other conversations. We mostly are talking about how minorities and minority-related or affiliated people negotiate, cohabit, and live amongst the majority, that is Anglo-Saxon whites or many others, those that we live around. I would like to state that this is a Draußenstadt-funded project with Akkud Macht Neu, Berlin Mondiale, and Tag Theater combined. Producers Karam Kapp and Johannes Braun take credit. My name is Fatui Tarak, and we are having a second conversation in a series of conversations, in a series of 5 conversations, regarding what the city is as a minority and what it means to us. In the past conversation that we had, which is available to you on a dedicated YouTube channel, we have had a conversation of what it means to be a squatter in Berlin, only to be removed. What are the rights of those who cannot pay thousands of euros to live in Berlin? How does the city accommodate those with less income and even less means? And how does it translate when it comes to minorities or refugees or whatever you have them? And how they get to negotiate themselves in this space that is Berlin and accommodate themselves in the political structure that we have. That conversation was quite wonderful. Our guests were Tina from Ratibor 14 and Christoph Meyer of Raumlabor. That was an excellent conversation that we had in the past. Today's conversation will have to do with information flows. In other words, how minorities see themselves in Berlin. We can also speak generally in Germany. We will have a 2 or 3 section conversation, or 3 sections. One would be to describe our experiences from where we come from when it comes to the right to get information and how information, whether free or not, whether how it had our say or not, and how propagandist or monopolistic information flows were in the places we lived, as opposed to this part of the world that we have come to, where we are made to believe that it is freer in its information dissemination. One has the right to provide free, unbiased, accurate information versus the reality that is still going on, which is minorities versus majority. We will have an out session describing our experiences in the past, an in version describing our experiences within Germany, in Berlin, and the last but not least, a conversation that has to do with in and out. In being that we are fortunate people, educated, perhaps belonging to a certain middle class that is in Germany as working people, and coming from a different culture, be it Syria, Africa, or Ukraine, and how do we reconcile these differences within this society that we live in? Welcome. Before we start this conversation, I would like to ask that my guests identify themselves or introduce themselves to us. I start with the lady who's in our midst, Anna.
Hi.
Introduce to us who you are.
Yeah. I'm Anna. I'm an artist. I came from Kiev in Berlin on the beginning of the war, and I think I didn't struggle too much finding my place here in artistic space. It actually was my safe space, and I'm really enjoying these opportunities that unfortunately refugee time gives me. At the same time, being an artist, it's also important to get a lot of information also that we are talking about Ukraine, being here. So it's being a refugee now from Ukraine, it has a mission to kind of handle and a bit be a voice of what's going on. And I think this is how I describe myself right now.
Okay. Hossam, who are you?
I don't know, to be honest. It's a very difficult question. I would like to appreciate it that you invited me to speak. I hope you don't interrupt. So, my name is Hossam Aldeen. I'm from Syria, actually. I came as a refugee to the, I'm forced to stay in Germany, or I call it exile place, to be honest, because I never felt like to leave my country, but I have to. Of course, I appreciate it for the support of Germany and the people, the government, everyone. Of course, I appreciate it, but it's like when you take a tree from place to other place, still like you don't feel home yet. And this is one of the most difficulties right now for me, to be honest. I'm working as a freelance journalist, looking for trouble always. So this is part of my job. I hope that's fine for you.
That will be the beginning of our description. Okay. I would like to, well, I guess I have to apologize for the little bit of wetness in my shirt. It was too much to barbecue, and this greenhouse that we're in does not circulate air very well, and therefore one needed to change shirts and one needed to shower a bit, only to discover one has not dried very well. That being said, I would like to start from this. In order for us to talk about where we are right now, we need a reference point, and the reference point would be where we came from and how information disseminated from where we came from. In other words, growing up, when we looked at somewhere to look for news and information, how did we do it? So let's start with you growing up in Ukraine. Who was the source of news, and how accurate and true do you think were they? In hindsight, that is.
I think in my case, it's actually complex because we also mentioned before that there is some countries where the politics already making a false, absolutely unreal kind of situation where people find themselves. I think in my case, my country when I was born was quite young, and like after Soviet Union, of course, we had a lot of pro-Russian influence, we had a lot of corruption, so we had a lot of problems basically, but in the same time, there was some blicks of freedom and some like still like it developing with years that you can speak more and more and go out from this communism, or open something that the propaganda at that time covered from Ukrainian history, but it also comes with this boiled figures from that time, because it's always this conversation like somehow from two flanks, and it's something that I didn't see, but it was existing all the time. And with start of the war in 2014, and then now the big war, it became more real and more emphasized that when you see, like, look back. But when you're just growing and it's your, when revolution started in 2014, I was like 18. So I was trying to build my own kind of picture, and then you try not to rely on the news, and you're kind of in center of events somehow. So it's easier to get something to understand what's going on while you're part of it. But in the same time, you have like a lot of politics, and you have no idea what's actually going there. So you analyze, so you have different channels also, which is more independent, less independent. So it's all the time, even now, like checking the information all the time, trying to figure out, is it kind of propaganda, which is all the time everywhere, unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know, depends what kind of propaganda it is, but still you see it everywhere if you can see it. And so it's, I think, the reality.
Okay. Hossam, growing up in Bashar al-Assad's Syria.
Well, it's a branch of North Korea, actually. We have a second branch. I would love to describe a story happened to me. It's related to what's happening. So I was 17 or 18 years old. I was completely brainwashed with the Al-Ba'ath party, which the only political party, and we were like brainwashed about what we think about Europe, America, Israel, Jewish, whatever. So I was following like a ship. Then suddenly I went to Lebanon as a scout leader. So I found a lot of different news what I receive. Every year we celebrate the victory against Israel in 1973. And then suddenly I found out that we lost the war, but nobody knows in Syria. So I felt very bad, to be honest. I felt how stupid, how they cheat us with many things, like what's happening in North Korea. They told them that they win the World Cup, for example. So we don't have internet in that time. We don't have even like the TV, only the governmental channel, and we have only 3 newspapers, all belong to the government, so we don't have any sources for news, only what they give us. We have to believe. And from the the first degree at the school, they start brainwashing us to tell us this is good, this is bad. So this is how we start, to be honest, unfortunately. So in this case, I made kind of revolution. I start buying a book which not allowed to read it in Syria or buy it in Syria, or I start working with a small hostel for foreigners. So a lot of people told me a lot of things we never heard about it. I feel like we are in different world, we are different country. I don't understand how they cheat us in this way, to be honest. I felt very bad. So from that time, everything changed in my life. It's start of revolution.
Can I ask a question? I think it's interesting how you now can define this true or false. Did it give you some, keys to feel what is right or what is wrong, without for the people who were living in the same.
Yeah, I felt very bad, especially when I talked to people still brainwashed. I feel sorry for them. I forgive them. I don't have a problem against them because I understand how they get the information, how they learn it from the family, from the parents, from the friends, whatever, at the work. Because if you talk in a politics, you go to jail for 20, 30 years. Nobody knows anything about you. You disappear. You're not exist anymore. Even your family doesn't know where you are. So it's kind of fear. They grow the fear inside the people. So that's what's happening, to be honest.
Let me ask this question then. Syria went through a revolution and Ukraine went through the Maidan revolution. Did anything in this period, 6, 7 years ago, 10 years ago, change anything in the way you got news? In other words, instead of government-sponsored propaganda that you're supposed to listen to, did anything change in that time? Did anything change when you came and realized what you are listening is false in this part of the world?
I think the revolution, it was the highest point when people understood that there is something going wrong. So basically it wasn't a change point, it was already, the change point was before. Yeah. So basically when it was very obvious when the politics goes one way and the people inside of the country go other way. And of course it was big influence of pro-Russian president, because he didn't want to go in other direction where people wanted to go, to have this Europe future, which we can discuss, but still a role model. Yeah. And of course but from the other hand, what helped us that we had quite big opposition, and I think the channels, they were also all our channels are bought by the very rich people, so to say, politics, and they have different interests. So of course there were channels that were more or less kind of differently lightening the situation, but most of them, they were in opposition to our president, and there it was clear what's going on. And what was wrong, that is part of Ukraine that had more influence from Russia, they still had Russian channels and pro-Russian channels. And that's actually why I asked the last question, because what is going on in Russia right now, it's insane. If you think how communists did it and how successful was it, that it even didn't change it just get worse in Russia, you know, and
We are from the same school.
yeah.
You mean the
And
same applies in Syria as well?
Yes, exactly. I mean, even in Lebanon, what's happened in Lebanon, the same story of Ukraine. And I'm sorry about that. It will happen also a big war soon. So a part were occupied by the Syrian regime in Lebanon, and still like Hezbollah and the rest, and the other part is supported by European and the other. But the problem, who's suffering? Like in Ukraine, the people suffering. In 2008, Russia attacked Georgia. In 2014, they took a big part of Ukraine, a very important part, and nobody react. And this is the problem. They let the people like to see their destiny, you know.
But this is the conversation, which is, it's the information space that is inundated with fake news and formulaic, yeah? The Russians, even after doing what they've done, said, no, this is our right to do it because this was our land in the first place. And the people who live there, who are abused, don't get to have their say because you control the information space.
Yeah, in our case, it was like this, because I think, unfortunately, Ukraine lost this information war in 2014. And this is a fact, and a lot of people are telling the story. And also, what was under this ground, why we were weaker in this propaganda, pro-Ukrainian, pro-Russian propaganda, it was super easy. Yeah. And it's also that communism, in communism time, everyone talented, all the directors, like best minds, they were like not sometimes forced, sometimes they had to move in other countries. So basically, when we appeared an independent country, our television, our like people, they were not ready to produce their own things. And only after 2014, when they understood that it can't be any longer, only then Ukrainian films started to produce. So we had like big budgets, like they started to appear. Wow, we have money for it. Now we understood that it's a problem, that it's an influence, that this is something then in the end manage where people go. Only like,
So I would like just to comment a little bit about the situation. I'm very disappointed. I know there's people at the east side of Ukraine like brainwashed because of Russian, influence there, and the Ukrainian also left them alone. The Ukrainian government, also they didn't give it a lot of attention to support those people. So they
when after 2014 or
exactly. So they took the first part. They didn't think about the east side, They took this island, and they didn't think about could be also more and more and more. So, and this is the problem. It's like a cancer. When you have a part of the cancer, you need to surround it a little bit.
Well, if I may say so, what unites us all is that in one way or another, we were born in pre-post-communist countries where information was one of one. There is a government information and there is no other. To ask if something is false is to get yourself in trouble in the sense that you are countering narrative by creating your own, which was never possible. And that seems that we are in unison when it comes to not knowing what the hell was news and what was propaganda and what was state-sponsored buffoonery. Let's come to this part of the world now that we're here. And let's look at our lives and looking at how we live here. Does that which we left back home, in other words, that propaganda, that state-sponsored, does it stop you from getting accurate information, for example, about what's happening in Ukraine? As you said, the East is different than the West, and do you have trouble finding accurate information with regards to the place you left a long time ago? This would be a question for both of you.
Yeah. Okay. Of course, we find a lot of problems, especially in my time before. We don't have internet, we don't have anything. We have only one resources. Now we have 1 billion of resources, and this is one of the biggest problem. We are confused. Many people publishing and many people watching like YouTube or the like a Twitter or the now TikTok or the others. There's a lot, but they are not professional and they don't give the right information from the right place, or at least to put a resource. By what you get this in news, for example, you're like normal person like me, you say something, you have aim from that, maybe money, maybe political reason, maybe things. So many times we get a lot of wrong news, for example, especially, for example, about Syria. From the opposition side or from the regime side, for sure they are lying, and also the opposition, a big part also they are lying too. So we don't get the right question. Everyone, let's say, everyone take the part to his side, this is the problem. So what I would like to say, that we have, we call it like active journalist or journalist active. So this is a big difference. When you are a journalist, you have to be like neutral. But if you are activist, you support your side. So that's why we get lost. If there's something happening, we don't get the right news exactly. They just would like to show what he wants to show us, not more than that. So that's why a lot of people get confused. And for example, anything happening, for example, refugees here, I have a lot of communications with the refugees, so a lot of contacts. They will send us back or something like that. Any small thing, they will send us to the army in Germany or something. Just like they don't know the new. It was only suggesting or idea at the parliament, or just some parties says, how about to do this, for example, and of course they have to discuss and to accept and to vote. It's take a long time, but because a lot of people, they don't know exactly what's going on precisely, and they get really afraid, or they have a fear, and this is big problem. Like what's happened on Ukraine. The Russian says, we are winning, and the Ukrainians say we are winning. And I'm sure both of them, they are lying, With the war, always you lie. You don't get the right information 100%.
Yeah, I think in our case, it's not so important right now who is winning. It's the information itself. I think I was confused last month when I met some people that were like, oh, it's much better in Ukraine right now. Yeah, and I was like, yeah, guys. So if you're not so much surrounded by the information, or this information stepped back from the first lines for a moment, it doesn't mean that it's better now. And it's also what we are going through, and Ukraine was going through first year, because first months as we were around the world, everyone was speaking about us, and it was so important that people know about it, people do something to kind of protect us, to help us. And then when this was on the peak and then very quickly down, the attention, people were like, oh my God, the world is forgetting about the war, and it's actually a tragedy, but in the same time it's a reality. Yeah, and even now in Ukraine, you can't read the news all the time like we did first months, because first months you just in there, it's the war started in your country, and you're just a news, you're yourself a news. And yeah, so basically now we don't have a struggle of which information is true or false. Fortunately, we are on one side, and everyone knows what Russia says, and no one believes Russian, and it's already a good way. Thank you very much. Normal editors and channels. Of course, there is a propaganda in Ukraine, but the propaganda that helps us. So basically, people have to believe that everything more or less good, that we are winning. People have to believe in winning, even if we know that.
Is there ever such a thing as good propaganda? Is there such a thing as good propaganda when it comes to disseminating information?
It's really a really nice question. And if I were not inside of some special situations, for example, if you're in the Ukraine and you have bombings every day in Kiev, like it was in May, and there is a lot of information that we are not sure we will win or not. Today we lost this and it's super, super bad and we don't know what we're gonna do, we will win or not. No, it's impossible to live in it. Yeah. It's just emotionally unbearable. So of course our propaganda, which connects to have in the same time of the war population in Ukraine, which feels more or less stable. So it's like stabilizing and believing in the best. And of course it's cool that you understand that it's our wish, that it's what we are going to, and a lot of people understand it. And some not, but then you can do nothing with it, because if you will, like in such a situation, trying to be very true in all the moments, sometimes it brings instability, which brings, so from one side I feel that I'm not okay with it because I can handle it. From another side, okay, I'm in Berlin. And I don't go through every day these missile attacks, and maybe it's good that you keep some direction and you go with it, but it will bring bad things also anyway. But
yeah, I would like to interrupt again, as always. As I mentioned, that in my opinion, propaganda making the same mistakes of the Syrian revolution, for example. As an opposition side, we didn't criticize ourselves. And this is a bigger problem, to be honest. When they made some people crime or do something, we don't mention it, we hide it, because we are just showing the good in news. And this is wrong. What I was happy about it yesterday, I read about it in news, which now there's a big corruption at the Ukrainian army, because they found one leader that he was corrupted, send people to front line and other people send them home.
The problem was that basically each man in Ukraine has to serve from 18 till 60. And of course not everyone wants to serve. And there were some people in the offices that you can pay to have the paper, then you can't serve. So you could go out of Ukraine, basically, generally.
Yeah, we have the same school. That's what I said to you. We have the same school.
But it was all around.
It's corrupted country, like my country, completely corrupt. If you have money, you survive. If you don't have money, you stay at the front line, for example. Yeah.
But I think Ukraine is moving quite good in it, because we have such news. So first month says first.
As in, you've created a society that can handle bad news now. It doesn't need to be propagandized to death.
It's a part of propaganda. So the news shouldn't be too bad. So I think it's more time goes, more time goes from this very terrifying news that we heard on 24th of February. If we will hear something like this in May, it will be like, what the fuck, Now we're like, we've heard about it. We know people who left. So it's good that these bad things are appearing. So people stop to say that we have to support politics, we have to support, because our own goal is only to win. So people stop to do it. And
I'm sorry, I would like to interrupt again.
No, but you raised an important
point. Just one
Go
second. At the beginning of the war in Syria, I was like that, completely. I agree with you. But then, slowly, I found out nothing deserves to die. Why I have to die? Okay, my country, okay. But why I have to die? We have only one life, Why I have to get injured? Okay, I love my country. At the beginning, I can do whatever just for my country. But then later I learned nothing deserves No one deserved that I die for it. Many millions of people died before, just for fight or war or something like that. I don't understand why we have to fight and die and something. I prefer to run. Maybe I'm a coward now. I used to be working at the front line in Libya and Somalia, in Sudan, in many places. I saw the death many times. But then I found out that's stupid. People dying for what? For other people. I don't care.
The revolution wasn't worth it, or the revolution?
Of course it's worth it, of course.
Yeah.
But completely what I'm saying, it's a lot of people dying. That's my problem, you know. If we can find a political solution, I will jump on it immediately to stop bleeding. And that's my point, to be honest. Of course, I'm sorry about what's happening in Ukraine. I'm not defending Russia. Russia, my first enemy right now. You know, they're attacking my country. They're supporting the regime or something. But I understand. But also the civilian, they are dying, you know. I know European, American, they're supporting. But from far away, if anyone sent military to Ukraine, no one. So why you have to defend? I don't know.
I know why, and it's written in our history, and we know what's gonna be if Russia will come, and we won't fight. That's the biggest issue. That it's not the neighbor that wants to come and say, "Okay, now we are Russia." No, we know what happens when Russia comes. We know how many deaths will it be. We know how much. It's genocide. We have the biggest genocide during Soviet Union. It's called Holodomor, and our history is a lot of blood, and a lot of blood came from Russians. And now people are fighting on the front lines because they know what will happen. And they finally we got our independence. Finally, we are ruling our own rules. Of course, we are not perfect now because we are still struggling with this first years building a governmental country. Of course, there is a corruption. Of course, we are going through it, but we don't want Ukraine stop to exist. We know that each person that is pro-Ukrainian, that feels like itself Ukrainian, will die if Russia comes. So it's not about choosing to fight, it's life or death.
I completely understand you, but I'm saying, what after? For the second generation, with a lot of people living in Germany, look, for example, we have 1.5 million Syrian in Germany. If Syria now, for example, the system collapsed, do you think people will come back? No one will come back. Only maybe few people,
hold
for
on,
example.
though. So revolutions are always remembered and measured as to what they aspired to solve, not the aftermath, because the aftermath is always unknowable.
Yeah.
Which brings the question. You said a very important point. You regret that as opposition, you didn't criticize your own people, right?
Yes.
But that's also difficult because your entire life you've been propagandized to death. You need to have the shoulders to handle criticism as people, as an individual,
Yeah,
as
but when the
public,
big
as
mistakes,
government.
big corruptions, Islamic, for example, terrorists, whatever, coming, I have to criticize all of those people. I have to kick them out. We went for revolution just to kick the regime, not to bring another regime, the same story, I didn't leave my country, my house, my life, my work, my things, just to bring another people, which they are almost worse than the first one. No, I didn't make this revolution for that. And this is what I'm trying to say. I'm not a criticizer.
I have one answer
understand you.
for your question and one question back. One answer is there is 5 million people abroad, 5 million Ukrainians abroad, and we all probably know someone, and we all know that economically Europe is more powerful, especially during the war. And of course there is a possibility that people in Ukraine knew before. And actually each of young creative or not creative soul in Ukraine had somewhere unconsciously a dream to get out, and now they're dreaming to get back. Some of them will stay because they will find a family. They will understand that they can't afford live in Ukraine because they found a job or they feel themselves like comfort. Some of them are going back right now, like my best friend. She's like, I don't want to live in Paris. I don't want to be there. I feel okay.
You've given us a nice segue to continue with my conversation, which is, now that we've spoken of the out, let's speak of the in.
But one only last thing what I was going in, that when the war will stop and we will win, the people we have to create who first will come back, or the people who are there, they have to, of course, create the space, safe space, and the space of developed country that people who are not ready to come back, like volunteers to rebuild the country, which is a lot of people, they will come back. So of course it will be like different layers of people who are ready on different stages to come back. It's simple, but my question now to you, what will be with Ukraine if we won't fight?
No, but just to reply to the first answer. Sorry, just very fast. Yes, very fast. It's very important. It's really important what's happening right now. She asked very important question. Before like 12 years, the revolution in Syria started. Yeah. The first 5-6 years, I would like to come back to rebuild my country. I had the same feeling, the same things, the same scenario, like I have seen the movie, you know. So I'm sorry, I don't mean to disappoint you, but the point after 10, 12 years, even if I come back to Syria, I will not find the same place. I will not find the same people. I will not find the same soul. And it's war, crimes, poor
and
people, services.
We have 44 millions and 5 is out of Ukraine. 39 millions of people, Ukrainians, are in the country.
Yeah, I completely understand. But later, how long? This is the problem. Do you know when the war stop? And this is the question. We thought 1 year and we come back.
What is
Wait,
your,
hold on.
What is your...
Let's structure it in such a...
We're not fighting.
Let's structure it in such a way. One is a situation that happens to a country called Ukraine, which is very near Europe, by any means or by a lot of means considered European, and therefore is creating tremendous amount of help, even amongst the destruction, and is going to be given tremendous amount of help to heal, to rebuild. And therefore, that life standard that one finds in Germany, pretty soon once this war is over, one can certainly find in that part of the world. Whereas a devastated Syria, which you can only watch in movies as to see what apocalypse means, a devastated society, a divided society that you were born and raised in, and you come back to see that it's become completely torn, is not an inviting place. I am from Ethiopia. I could certainly say that I was a weirdo even when I was there in terms of how I looked at Ethiopian society. But we also had our share of a civil war that the world didn't know about. Or we were an afterthought to a CDF news outlet that they gave 30 seconds to, that killed 1 million people. And therefore, when somebody asks, once somebody has made it to this part of the world, you want to come back, that's a bitter and very not so funny a joke. So while I understand the sentiments that Hossam has, the situation that we're in is, each to each his own is the best answer that I could provide it, and also because I wanted to go on with this question. Now that we're all here and living here, right? There is a certain thing that I have personally felt, and I would like to make this question very short. Do you think there are gatekeepers to the information we get in this part of the world? In other words, it's very difficult once you move to this part of the world as to how to do. Where do I register? What do I have to do first? What do I have to do second? It's the bureaucracy, the kind of bureaucratic mountain that requires quite a lot to climb on. Do you think we have problems with regards to being newcomers with information? Do you think coming from where we come from, we have trouble accessing information? or being, the ability to use information? In other words, have we been jaded by the places we come from to not join this society faster, as they say?
I think from my side, when I came, it was the beginning of the war, and I joined a Telegram chat where it was like 2,000 people, Ukrainian refugees, and we shared all the information. So basically, for me, first steps were much easier than now, like looking for a place where to live in Berlin and having this first works and projects and how to deal with the bureaucracy which already inside of your living. But when we came, it was so big help inside of the community of who also came, that like this information was all the time around. So if you wanted to take and have information, it was somewhere if you just start to look. And what was great when the war started, it was a big wave of support. I think everyone knew it or heard about it, and it was so much volunteers. When I crossed the border, I was like, I don't know where I go. I didn't hope that there is someone on the other side in Poland like this. Yeah, I thought that I would be like the sleeve, brought somewhere. But when the bus came from Ukraine, it was around 40 people with papers where was wrote different cities in Poland, Berlin. So people were just coming together to bring refugees to another cities, and some of them were hosting them for weeks or months. And I think
so experience in coming from a war-torn country and joining this one was far more smoother than you thought, perhaps, or was it far more difficult than you thought?
I didn't think about it.
Okay. Let's talk experience of being from here and having trouble being accommodated in this country. How difficult was it, or?
Well, I used to travel to Germany 32 times before the war, actually. So I have let's say, a big network, and I have a lot of friends. I didn't find this big problem at the beginning, but of course I would like to have my own place. Was very difficult. Until now, a lot of people suffering to find a place, to be honest, especially if you are from, let's say, refugee background, or let's say Auslander, So it's a bit difficult. Maybe Berlin, it's easier than many places, but still a lot of people suffer because of that. They like to guarantee that, to be honest. Yeah.
Thank you. Is there such a, that would be the next question. Is there a gatekeeper in this country?
He's a dictator.
Is there a gatekeeper of information, or a gatekeeper who, let me put this,
I
put it this way.
understand what you mean. I understand.
So we live in Berlin as migrants, as whatever definition we have of ourselves. It seems to me that whenever something gets broken down, and God help a Syrian or an African doing it, the news cycle would go out of its way crazy. Case in point is a couple of fire trucks that burned in New Year's Eve, which Kai Wagner, the head of CDU, used to say no, did I hear? No, sorry, my bad. Every time something small happens that has to do with minorities, it explodes.
That's what I'm going to.
Go ahead.
So, as in 2015, we established a small NGO, or small Verein, they call it in Germany, club, whatever. It's a small a society for the Syrian refugee or Palestinian, any refugee, for example. He used to visit my place. It's called Salam. And we used to try to support refugee, to find a place, accommodation, whatever, and also to face the difficulties. For example, what's happening in Cologne at a New Year, for example, completely the media, at the beginning, people welcome to us with the flowers, with the roses. They were very sweet. And what's happening in Cologne, just like some people harassed some girls, whatever happening in 2016, I think, people completely change. Even if you go to train or use the transportations, people completely facing you, completely in a weird way.
It was front page news on the Daily Mail, Bild, and every other tabloid and newspaper. I remember it as it was yesterday.
Bild, this kind of newspaper, they're specialists to change the opinion of many people. Look at the refugees, what they are doing. Look, there's one refugee, he steals the money. There's a lot of criminals from Germany, from many people. And then I hate to say, this guy, he was Syrian, or this guy, he was Ukrainian, and this guy, why you have to say his background, you know? It's not
Which
fair.
is why I ask, is there a gatekeeper that says this information gets to be published in Bild, the Daily Mail, and everything else when minorities do something, and when a white person does something else, it's completely covered?
It's a party, like political parties games, you know, and depends about the situation, how they play it, you know. Sometimes they have to hide the information because they don't want to propaganda or something like that, or any problem because they have election soon. Or other party, they take advantage of the situation, like right wings, for example, AfD, or other parties, or they are really against foreigners in general, not only refugee, all foreigners, they are enemies, for example, you know. And this is how they play with the news. They try to use any small story just to make a huge story with that.
Anna?
I don't know what to say.
Oh, excellent. The reason I asked this question is I'm going to go to the next part, which to me is the most important. A friend of mine, Karam, explained the in and out phenomenon. The in and out explains us to a person who's technically proficient and educated to the point that it joins the German workforce and is by virtue a middle class. The out virtue is the virtue that you come from a different part of the world, you have a different culture, you have different norms and religion and what have you. And these two differentiate you. So you are forever part of the German middle class society and you contribute to your part of it. But then there are things that rub you off, as we said, when it comes to, oh, these dumb pesky Arabs and Africans. And you are always questioning yourself if you are part of this society, integrated, and therefore you are part of it, and then you find yourself to be the outside. So the question then becomes, how do you reconcile the disparity in the information and presence you get from in being in this class and having this information? And the second is, if you are a journalist and do work in this information dissemination, how do you understand and produce a work that always has to cater for these two differences?
I would start from the point that it's only 1.5 years I'm here, and I go in Ukraine once in 3 months for a month or something like this. Yeah. And my bubble, information bubble, is Ukrainian. Okay. Working bubble is German. And for me, it's perfect. So, I don't know, it's... for now, it brings.
Is there anything you're asked to sacrifice at all?
For a moment, it brings only, like, what we have situation right now, 2 Ukrainian artists and 2 Ukrainian people will still receive a lot of help. Being a filmmaker is also means that people are interested in what I do more than if I were German right now. And I would have much more kind of people around talking about the same things. And why I'm here is also part why that I want to bring information here, but also as an artist, I feel that here I can have and material and energy and money that will help me to talk about the topics connected to Ukraine. So being right now in Ukraine, it's survival. Being here in Germany, I have possibilities to talk about Ukraine and to maybe film in Ukraine and to share the word. So basically now I see it's like a possibility to talk about my nation, about my pain much louder, and I hope I use it like how I can. Also the thing is that I don't have a like super big wish to be integrated. I don't feel myself super different in a way that I don't belong to. I lived in Germany 8 years ago, had like 1.5 years here, so I speak German, and I didn't have this face that I had that time when I was like, I speak only English now, and I don't know what's U-Bahn saying me, and this was a problem, and also bureaucracy. Now I came with the privilege of like being already a bit integrated with language. It helps a lot, and I'm just using this to be myself. And we know how much Ukrainians are in Berlin. We know that I'm a girl and I can travel home, and this is also a big privilege. So I think in the future, this question will be more emphasized, like where I go. But also I have a privilege to be a documentary artist, yeah, and I like to be on the way, I like to be on the edge, I like to be there and there and there. So I like to be nowhere. Somehow it's comfortable for me. But I think a lot of people right now, after 1.5 years, they're facing these questions. Do I want to stay in this country, or I want to come back in my country, which is in the war? So they feel that they are not integrating, or they're not having something that they can take, like I think that I can make art about my country and somehow connect these realities. So they start or to integrate and feel themselves not very good with it, or feel struggling, or they decide to come back, and they come in also kind of a shocking reality, which is unnormal for everyone, unfortunately. Yeah. So this is also a period where you still somewhere, and also the shock that comes already 1.5 years, but we are still having this trauma, which a bit blurs everything. So it's still survival mode. It's still unstoppable war, which brings you this news, bad news. So you all the time traumatizing yourself, with this news. So you're still a bit in this kind of, in between realities.
Hossam?
Well, I would like to say integration. We faced a lot of problems, if you remember, about integration. Integration, it's a big word, okay? Integration not from one side, integration from both sides. It's nice to know about us, for example. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not criticizing Ukraine or the support of Ukrainian people, of course. There are victims like us, but when they say Ukrainian like us, they are European, But for us, we are the black sheep. And what's happening, to be honest, unfortunately, like when they say integration, I would like to introduce you my food, my culture, what you know about. They think we're riding camel and we are like having tent and all of this, and we have, everyone has 4 women at least. I don't have half one, So there's a lot of
and we the Africans live on trees.
Yeah, exactly. We eat in our hand and we play in our nose, and I don't know. There's a lot of things, to be honest. They hear about us in the wrong way, to be honest. They are not curious to know us more, to be honest. That's the problem. I feel unintegrated. I used to teach foreigners for 12 years before I came to Germany in 2011. So I had my own, let's say, oasis. You know, I have a house for 22 students from everywhere, and we used to live together, and we are completely integrated to each other, Spanish, Italian, German, American. So people, they are open, and I was open to learn, and that's how we call it integration. Yeah. Not integration, you have to follow us, you know? You have to do what we say. I feel like we are not students anymore, you know, we are not, okay, we are independent people. So that's one of the biggest problems I face it. As you say that to come back to Ukraine or something, I always think to come back and always think I will not come back. I don't want to see this, my house destroyed. I don't want to see that my village completely like disappear. I have an old house, as I told you, Anna. It's 460 years old. I used to live in an old town, like 2,000 years old, you know, one of the oldest places in the world, you know. And I will not find everything similar. So that's why my body here, my soul there. But I cannot live well here and I cannot live there. So I feel like I'm talking about myself, of course. And maybe many people have the same problems, maybe, like they're kind of lost. Maybe we think about, I was talking with like my friend, you know, I would like to move from here, to be honest. I would like to go to Mediterranean, people more social, more action, more active, more lively, actually. Here a bit frozen.
Yeah. So we're being asked, is there a culture? Okay, then that makes a very good question. You're being asked to integrate, but culturally we're not equivalent, is what you're being told. Integrate to what we have and what we see, but I don't want to have in yours because we are culturally not equivalent.
No, not like that.
That's the powers that can say that, yeah. But that seems to be in a different game, because it's wonderful how everybody went to the Hauptbahnhof and accepted Ukrainians. We love that. And we thought maybe we've changed the leaf, only to realize in this very building that we are speaking right now, we had a derelict building that we had to section, because while they were very happy to receive you, the African medicine students studying in Kiev had no one to receive them at all. So we had to make do. So this cultural, this paradigmical thing that doesn't change repeats itself again and again. So while we're very happy that you actually, for once, Europe actually changed its mind and said, yes, we're going to go all the way to the Hauptbahnhof to receive you and give you whatever you can. Every time a pesky Syrian or an African shows up, the doors are closed, the bureaucracy mounts, and you are forever made to believe you are not of an equivalent culture or an equivalent system. What gives is the question.
What gives what?
How do we change this? Do minorities need to do more? Do we need to be more German? If there is
both. I think both.
The question is more complex, because like being Ukrainian not in NATO means that people won't come and help us. You know, we also feel ourselves like, what, we wanted to go in Europe, guys. Like, and first months we were crying to get some weapons, some help. And if we were Poland, you know, like all the countries will come and help us with everything, because we are closer to them now, because they feel danger much more. Sorry, but it's like this. It's survival game. And closer you are to your neighbors, they will take care about more. If Germany feels that Poland will be attacked by Russian and is closer to them, to it, to her, whatever, it will be more help. It's like, of course there is some mentality there that still this colonialism and everything, like so many judgments and everything, but at the same time you feel it in so many levels in your country, in like it's like the world functions right now. Like it's just education level, it's just like self-esteem, it's like ego, like everything together. So just going on with only this small. It's like a big rock, like a small rock from the mountain. It's like so huge, and it's super hard to say where to start to think about the war like a whole thing, that there is no borders, the color of our skin comes from the amount of sun that we get, so it comes from the education, how teachers present our world. Maybe it's it. Yeah. Maybe it's perception, how we see the world. Maybe it's something completely different.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question? Sorry. So, after 2014, why Ukraine not in NATO?
We have to ask NATO.
Why?
I'm not NATO.
I'm asking this question because I'm sorry, they are like using Ukraine, in my opinion, to be honest. If they would like to support, they can support it from the beginning, you know? This kind of support...
Yeah, of course, it's what I told. It's a danger, how much it was dangerous to support at that time. Now it's dangerous not to support us.
Oh, it gets worse. We were told Ukraine was not a nation back then. President Obama came out and said, oh, we would not help them because that current Ukrainian nationalism that all Ukrainians feel was not there at the time. Verbatim. President Obama said it.
I don't know, but question, I think it's now it's so much what like I feel. It's my personal. It's not political. It's what like I feel that it's now it's emotion. A play of how like people are scared. Politics are scared. They just want to have everything okay. And if it was okay for them to close eyes that Russia took Crimea and Donbass, then it was okay. But now they have a danger much closer. They understood that it won't stop there, and so they started to act. So it's always like, for me, this game of who and how and what is better for us. So it's always selfish, and maybe sometimes this kindness opens, but we see other countries. And we see Syria and Iran, and we understand that this kindness, this political kindness, is not connected to reality.
One small thing, just sorry for interrupting. I would like to mention something. Now, the defense ministry in Germany, they're asking for like people to go to the military because they don't have official one. Now, they have only the official one, but they need more because the number very small. So they ask for 2,000, like 200,000, like 250,000 soldiers they ask. Yeah. But most of people in Germany, they don't want to join the army. So people...
Why would you when you're living this comfortably and there is a NATO structure and your biggest enemy is fighting a war 3,000 kilometers away from you? That's for sure.
I understand, but the people, they don't want. That's my question. The people, they are not looking, to defend the land or something. I'm the first one would run away. Yeah. Like many people would run away.
Let me get us back to the conversation of cultural equivalence. Yeah. As you said, and this includes our friend Nina as well, and the way it was described to me was even more profound in the sense that even though she's educated and she has the job and she's lived here long enough, she considered this culture to be too cold, and therefore she would like to move to Mediterranean. That's what my friend Hossam is describing. That is a way of accommodation where you leave a geographical space instead of sitting there and changing this culture so that anybody can compete. But it is, in my opinion, do you believe this culture, as we live in it and sit in it, do you believe it will be open enough to invite others in terms of embracing other cultures?
Maybe it takes time. There's a lot of things happening, for example, like what's shocking me here, for example, the right wings every day when they do some questionnaire, they are having high numbers. So that's making me scared, to be honest, about my life, my people, my friends, everybody, because they don't like us, And those people, every day they are more and more. How? They came from where? Now they are number 2 as the last questionnaire. Sure. Number 2, imagine, CDU, AFD. Yeah. Then the SPD, for example. And that's scaring me, to be honest. And if they pro-Russia, just to know.
Like, nothing scares me anymore.
Right?
I don't think that. I don't know. I think I lost a sense of being scared after 24 so much. I was like, oh, I can die. And, then you're like, oh, yeah, in the day of the invasion. So I think it's also a nice point that you don't, think too much. You just think what I can do. So I think, what I can do, and that I have here some people that I meet and some thing that I can do or show and influence society somehow, that is around me, and it's already something what I'm thinking about. And I don't know, I think in Germany, but after the Nazi regime, people are so scared of being political that in 100, maybe 100 years, there will be no scene like this, on the top. This is my personal thing, because even when the war started, it was so hard for Germany to start bring something, in Ukraine. And I felt it in society. I don't know, you felt that for each of people I talked, it was it's like a war and we want to help, but we don't want to give your weapon. It's a weapon. I think Germany still struggles with.
So Germany has the pacifism, is what you mean? Yeah.
I think it's not this word. I think it's more to be to have a position which won't traumatize them again. In a society. And it was super hard for us for Ukrainian government also to bring action from the German government. And also it wasn't just a politics, it was also in eyes of the people who were like I was talking to. And it's super changed in a year. People don't tell me anymore that, I don't know if it's good to bring weapon in Ukraine. They just, we live for we liefern tanks.
So information finally reached them that you're being bombed to bits and therefore this cannot go. When they saw the pictures of you being bombed in your homes is when they changed your mind, didn't it?
I don't think so, because they've seen it from the beginning.
Okay.
But I think it's something slowly kind of turning that weapon is not only bad thing. It was so much in the head, especially in German society, that weapon is death. Weapon, it's what we made to other worlds, to other countries, also to Russia. Russia was the biggest not important, but during the World War, Russia was the country somehow who suffered mostly. They made this picture. And I think Germany also, somehow were fed by this propaganda, especially from another part of the world, also, that they kind of have this trauma to bring some metal in East.
No. Okay.
Yeah, and so they had to overcome mentally, I think, this kind of thing.
I would love to interrupt as always. So it's one of my hobbies. I was arrested because of the German equipment, to be honest. Because Siemens, for example, they send monitoring equipment to Syrian regime, so they can monitoring all the internet, everything. They can go to our privacy, our things. So it's private companies who made the weapons here. It's private companies, not governmental.
But government is who sponsor them to be in Ukraine.
Yeah, this is a different issue. But in my country, Al-Assad used the chemical weapons. And the chemical product came from Germany, from Munich, for example, from Bayer. There is a lot of problems. They're producing weapons to Saudi Arabia, to Iran, to everywhere. And this is, I don't like to pay taxes or for this kind of people, or to support who really like selling or producing weapons. I hate weapons now. I don't want weapons everywhere, to be honest. And what's happening, of course, Ukraine now they're asking for weapons and support and this kind. I completely understand you, but look what's happened in 1986, for example, Chernobyl, for example. What's happened? It was a big, small mistakes can destroy a big. Yeah, but in case if there's something happening right now with this war, can be affected a lot of countries, and that's what I meant. They still producing weapons. They still working with the,
Well, a private company produces a good. You can use it for good. And
yeah.
Well, but that's different. You see, you're absolutely right that Siemens sells surveilling equipment to the Syrian regime, so that it brutalizes its own government.
Yeah, and
Siemens also provides weapons to the Ukrainians that hopefully they can use to defend themselves. Again, we're talking about a future, even Ukrainian future, as if we're going to find out.
I think we come in from this topic to the same question. What will be if Ukraine won defeat?
Yeah.
You know, we have the same, we come to the same point, because weapon that we ask gives us life.
It's
And of course, that will be cool that no, Russia doesn't have it. We don't need it. There'll be no war. Glasses.
It's the same story. What's happening? It's just we are chessboard. Ukraine or Syria, the same scenario. Look, American army in Syria.
I faced that question that time. You remember what will be if Ukraine won't?
I understand you very well. But look, now in Syria, right now, there's American army. There's Russian-based also. There's a Turkish-based, there's Iranian-based, and there's also some like Hezbollah also there. So, and the ISIS there, everybody there, But they don't.
But we have very different history. We have, I know what was in Syria, and unfortunately it was dropped by inside of the country. So what we have and what is our privilege, that we are united as a country. There is no inside war. That's what makes us
that we haven't seen
powerful,
yet.
and what we kind of, why we are like having also the weapons now, because we know who will use it. We will use it, We don't have the opposition right now. It's super cool that we are. Unfortunately, Syria has much more problems, and that's why it requires more time. And it was like, I don't know, when I was reading about Syria, it's so much pain in there. And it's also the interest that was inside, like basically other countries, they made also this kind of break.
They want to end it. If they want it to be ended, they can do it. But they don't want. They would okay, Russia spend more, to pay more cost. To be honest, in Syria, to kill many.
What is your last point? So you.
Wait, hold on.
What?
I think
it's very very because we have to go there.
We're discussing. Okay.
We have to go there. Where are you leading with Ukrainian situation? What is your idea of perfect final?
There's no perfect. It's too late. This is the problem. As I said to you, we are chessboard, not more than that. That's what's happening right now. Why they don't give heavy weapons, for example, right now?
No, what are you leading? Where do we go with it?
They don't want to end it. It will last 5 years,
what
10
is the
years.
perfect thing?
There's no perfect to stop the war, of course.
How?
To sit together to find a solution.
Wait. Okay. Even I get to say something in this.
Yeah.
First of all, I am never a fan of the borders that we made since 1945, but we've all recognized these borders, even the African countries who've been carved up in colonialism. Yeah. We decided to stay within these borders and mutually choose to use these borders and form a union only when our language, when our culture, when the people so demand it. Other than that, you take Kharkiv and all of these 4 oblasts that the Russians took, And therefore, while they have, but they claim, what the Russians claim, that is, they have invaded Ukraine and have claimed that certain regions now belong to them. They have put them in their constitution. And therefore, when you say, let's negotiate, what you're saying is, okay, you have what you have, and we negotiate is for you not to take anything else. As for the heavy weapons you're talking about, why they're not giving them is, well, if I give them the heavy weapons, these people are so angry, and they should be, because they've been bombed the shit out of for a year and a half, that they might bomb downtown Moscow as downtown Kiev was bombed, and you will have nuclear exchanges, the fear. Now,
that's why
wait, hold on. Let's leave big power politics to the big powers, but our understanding is that what they have done in Syria is they were given an opening, and now Syria is a country that has a government in name only, but those who play around it are the big powers.
Yeah, exactly.
Ukraine, you can say the same, but it seems to be that the Ukrainians seem to be the one asking for the weapons.
Yeah, we ask for weapons also from America.
Assad asked for the
weapons.
weapons.
No, we ask as a rebel, we ask also. They give us some, but they don't give us the heavy one,
Yeah.
So we can win.
But your misfortune is an internationally recognized government in Ukraine asked for weapons, and in Syria, the internationally recognized government that was killing its own citizens was the one asking for weapons, and you happen to be on the side of the other side, who was fighting for democratic openness and freedom.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I'm against war. That's what I'm saying. Against fight.
Yeah, but are we not past this definitions of against war?
This is a classic war. Could last 10, 20 years. What's happened?
I was like 18 when I was like against war, and it worked out. When I was 19, the war started.
You still...
Well, okay, let me just have this final conversation, or the final question, and we go to our musical guest, who is forever waiting for us now.
And the food we didn't eat.
Yeah. Let's go about news outlets and information and go, okay, now that you've had your experience as a filmmaker and as a journalist, what does independent media mean? What does a media that is free of biases mean? What is a media that gives you information that you consider true mean? What would you consider to be its characteristics? Is there anything
Shall
like
I answer, or the ladies as always?
Please.
So, I don't believe, I'm a journalist and I study political science. I don't believe both journalism and political science, both of them lying all the time, just to know. And most of every channel, every part of the news, whatever, they have their own target. They need to, let's say, to have some point, the people, they have to understand it, or to send a message by their media, to be honest. So I don't believe 100% always. I have to check many media, for example, and check the sources until I find out, is it true, or they have another target under the table.
But that is you, a very trained journalist named Hossam, who is, let's say there is a minority that wants to hear news from back home. He has not had that experience of you sifting news to say what's propaganda.
We made a lot of mistakes until we arrived to this point.
So how
they
is
have to make a lot of mistakes until they find out. Otherwise, it will be difficult. They have to know if they would like to search for the right news or not. There's a lot of people, for example, as I said to you, many times, they will send us to the military in Germany, for example. They will send us back, for example. They will do this, they will do this, they will do this.
That was the misinformation.
Yeah, that's the problem. That's the problem. For the people, to educate the people, to teach them how to understand the news. There's some let's say, activists, some journalists doing as a YouTuber or as a TikTok or as an Instagram. They're trying to help people and get the right news in this way. You have to check the resources. Anyone says, the newspaper says that, okay, can you send me the article where it's saying there's a law? Where is the law? The article of the law. Exactly, they have to learn that slowly. Otherwise, bye-bye.
Okay. Anna?
Yeah, I have the same vision. I think I was quite young when my father was thinking on the TV, watching like news for 3 hours, and I was like, what are you doing? You're like watching news for 3 hours, really? And he was like, I'm analyzing. So, and he taught me that you have to see all the resources in the topic you're interested in and analyze. And I was like, okay, but still it's somehow in my mind, so I all the time kind of see the news, I don't feel sure about it, I say this, that I don't know if it's true or not, I have to check somewhere else, I have to ask someone. It's also something that connected to Ukraine, there is different things you already know, how you can get some information. I think you have to have clear mind and
have a clear mind that rejects propaganda.
But also, like, going back to different people, I met a wonderful woman here in Görlitz in Germany, and she was like, I go from school to educate people how to get information. So basically she was super angry that even here, where you have possibilities of a nice education, people in schools, they don't learn how to analyze information, how to get information. And I think it's actually the case and a very nice thing to do, to educate people how to do it from very young.
Are you saying how to spot fake news? How to spot fake news to be taught in schools?
I think it's more like how to understand things. And because in school you only, like, I don't know, my experience in school, you learn what you're taught to. You don't question things. And also, like, questioning things, it's already a nice start in school. Why do you think teachers think this way? We were not allowed to question our teacher. And I know that there is new education systems where you kind of go with a person, with a teacher in the discussion of things. It already brings a lot of...
That would be a very interesting point to make in this show, which is our generation who studied what we call the system of rote learning and always believing that the teacher is right, comes to a world and joins a society where free discussion was encouraged in schools, and therefore everybody comes off skeptical, whereas we are far more believers, right? And then we are now in this situation where we're in this country, looking back at where we come from, and we're trying to discern what's good information. And that's where we get in trouble when it comes to not knowing what. Also, I was meaning to ask, information from where we come from is tightly controlled because those old powers we left are still in charge. So they control most of it, and they manipulate it to the point of cutting internet when something happens. So how do you counter this? How do you get real information, I guess?
Yeah, now or like before? Before, as I said to you, we don't have information. We have information from the newspaper of the government, from the TV of the government, and we don't have other sources. Even the teachers, they have to say what the government wants. Even the sheikh at the mosque or the church or whatever, you know, they have to say what the government wants. And this is how they play with the people, exactly. They just brainwash them, no, that's it. Now, because we grew up like that, we have always this fear. We have to believe a person that we can trust, he will tell us the news. That's what's happening with many people. One, for example, from a TikTok, for example, he doesn't speak any German words, doesn't know nothing. He always say, in Germany, it will happen, blah, blah, blah. Germany will happen, blah, blah, blah. It seems he's James Bond, he knows everything, you know? And he doesn't speak the language, and he's saying that I'm a lawyer, but he's not a lawyer, because in Germany, if you study law in Syria, you're not allowed to be a lawyer in Germany, because we study French law, for example. Yeah. And it's a lot of people get their wrong informations by those kind of people, just as an example. So unfortunately, that's what's happening. They send, or just because of money, they get followers or like, whatever, I don't know.
Incentives are wrong.
Exactly, this is one of the biggest problems. The problems came from those, like the company of YouTube or the Instagram, they open space for them, you know? We have to report them, whatever, you know? because they give really wrong information. Like, for example, right now, the most difficult things with the Syrian women, for example, that Jugendamt will take your kids. Jugendamt, many, for example, ladies, Hossam, they will, is it true if we do that, they will take our kids, they don't sleep, they have a nightmare or something like that, you know? Like in Sweden, there's also like a propaganda, they are kidnapping the children and sell them, for example. And a lot of, like, for example, let's say minorities or like refugees get this information and scared from that.
The question then is, how do you counter? We were propagandized and grew up. Now YouTube incentivizes fake news because you get monetized the more viewers you have, not necessarily because you're providing accurate information. So how do you counter this? How do you, in an information ecosystem that's quite saturated, how do you pass accurate information, accurate news to the minorities within the society that no one is going to come to take your children, they need a court order first, and even then it's incredibly difficult. And you pass on more information that actually allows them to know that they're not in a country full of aliens, rather. So how do you do that? How do you counter that?
This is the only way. I said to you, we can trust people, other people we cannot trust. Yeah. The people we can trust, for example, who give us the resource news came from where? Is it official from the government, from the parliament, from this article, from this? Exactly. So otherwise, I cannot believe anyone say, okay, there's something happening there. Can you show me how you get this information?
So what you mean is train the whole minority?
Always we say according to what? As a journalist, when you would like to say information or something, details, you have to say according that.
I accidentally came to one idea that probably we will never have time when we can trust information for 100%, and you will always be played. I mean, but what I think and what was just appeared, that if some information brings you to hate of something, that's wrong. So each time now when I feel that I start to hate someone in the government or in like whatever, that it's very big propaganda, then this kind of wave brings me to something that other people want, and I'm like, whoa, stop and step back three steps, because I started to feel what I didn't want to feel. I started to hate what it wasn't in me, that something made me do it. Then it's influence. And then it's a sign for me that, okay, I got somewhere. So I step back and I'm like, okay, I'm a human being, I'm kind, I'm like lovely, yeah. Maybe sometimes I hate Russians, but it's normal, it's psychological defense. But when I start to really kind of be on this mood, I understand that I have to step back and see the picture, because like I'm getting too involved. And I think when we go back also in history, when people start to hate someone, like in being forced in this hate, it never brings something good. Sometimes, of course, you can hate something, but I think you feel this difference. Yeah, hate because you had some bad experience, and hate
at home,
because
at school, at the government, that you learn that. For example, they teach us to hate Israel, to hate Jewish or something like that. So this is one of the problem, and I learned to not hate anyone, to be honest. Even my enemy, I don't hate anyone. Like, for example, once 5-6 years ago, it was a problem at the east side in Germany, and they said, AfD or something did that. Okay, better than that all the newspaper criticize them, do some initiative, put some initiative at the, or put a light on a good initiative in that area. See why they are doing like that. You know, if you would like to solve the problem, not to show the problem, to analyze the problem, to understand why they are doing that, for example. And this is one of the problems in the government here. Okay, always criticizing, okay, that's not enough. You have to check what's the problem and how to solve the problem and to put a light and a good initiative there. There's a lot of people doing some good activities, trying to do something, let's say, to cleanse the desert, you know, it's like that.
Yeah,
But
I agree, but also coming back to what I've said, I think it's about manipulation, to learn how to, what feeling you get when you got manipulated. So it's very special feeling. It's not your hate. It's like hate that is brought somewhere. So basically you can feel it in you. And I think it's also a nice moment when you kind of get this feeling and you check it. And you're like, oh, I just got manipulated. Yeah, I reacted. Of course, we can pick it somewhere, everywhere, in social media. Sometimes it's just in the Instagram or somewhere. It's also like sometimes we got information from so many things.
You inherited this information, and you know, this information. For example, Fitoui always he's racist with me, you know. Arabs, Arabs,
Right,
Arabs.
right,
You know?
right. This
He's
is
always
what
saying Arabs.
I was
Arabs.
just going to
what
say.
the
That
Arabs did to him, you know.
I was going to say that what a
Racist African, you know, guy. I don't understand.
I can neither conform saying any such thing whatsoever for the sake of this conversation, but I would like to say what a profound insight you've just given us in terms of how to negotiate ourselves in this information space and say, if it triggers certain anger in you, then it's designed and it's not news and it's not information. And that perhaps is the takeaway point of this profound and wonderful conversation we've had. This is Civic City. To those of us watching to us live from Alex, Berlin, and to my guests who are here, I'd like to thank you very much, and I would like to thank my guests Hossam, Aldeen, and Anna Homann. We're gonna have the third version of this conversation in Aufbauhaus, Kreuztag Theater Kreuzberg. It's going to be narratives that will continue in this manner. We will have more guests. We will have musical guests as well. Thank you very much for being here.
I think it was very interesting.
Yeah, thank you. And now we have to rapidly move all of this so that our musical guest can come and perform soon. Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Thank you.